Well, Charles, we're here in Times Square.
It's a pleasure. Actually, it isn't a pleasure to be here. I mean, I can't imagine why anybody would want to have an office in this cesspool.
Really?
Yeah, I just don't get it.
But then you could hang out with Cookie Monster and Iron Man and get punched by Spider-Man if you don't give him $1.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff I really like to do.
Charles, how come Disney doesn't crack down on people wearing the fake costumes? Well, sorry, they're real costumes, but they're not officially sanctioned by the company that owns them.
So they're probably changing the name a little bit. It's not Cookie Monster, it's Cookie Mugster.
Yeah, that's right. So, do you want to describe to everyone what we're doing here, Charles?
Yeah, well, we're out here on the small chance that maybe the horrible and dopey and idiotic James Comey might emerge.
Tell us how you really feel about him.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's really something. Only dopey, idiotic, and horrible James Comey could unite by his stupidity the entire political spectrum. I mean, we now have the left coming out and savaging him. We have the right coming out and savaging him. We have the FBI savaging him. Who knows? His own kids may soon be savaging him. And, you know, he really comes across as if he's a holier-than-thou idiot.
He's done a lot of things that really sort of defy explanation. I mean, why did he fail to investigate all the obvious fraud that you've been able to find just in publicly available, essentially open source documents? I mean, he's the FBI. He's got access to phone calls, Five Eyes resources, various illegal FISA warrants, etc.
Well, I think now that we look back over his track record, I think people will have to understand him for what he was. He was apparently involved on the team, along, I think, with Rosenstein, looking into Whitewater and then Travelgate. I think it was probably on Whitewater, maybe also Rosenstein on Whitewater.
That's amazing.
Rosenstein on travel, giving them a pass. And then Comey was the U.S. was, I think, in justice, but he was brought in precisely in January 2002, precisely when the Clinton Foundation frauds escalated internationally. That's when he was selected to go in and lead as U.S. Attorney Southern District supposed investigation into the Clinton Foundation. And he didn't spend a week on it. He didn't spend a month on it. He didn't spend a year on it. He spent like, you know, a year and a half on it. I guess his job was to run it slow and give cover for the Clintons to go around the world and explode this fraud. And then he was promoted to Rod Rosenstein's present job of Deputy Attorney General. So he was in charge of all the investigations around the country and all the offices, well, I don't know about all the offices around the world, but all the investigations around the country, all the prosecutions around the country. And somehow that team, Dopey James Comey, couldn't see the obvious. I mean, it wasn't like you needed to do a lot of work. You could just take the information that's in the public domain and say, hey, the entity that's filing these tax returns is calling itself William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. There is no such entity. It's called the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. And hey, you know, and every year this thing has submitted tax returns. It failed to submit one in '97, which it should have, in my view. But in every year, from '98, '99, 2000, and then while he was doing the investigation, they didn't get an audit, as is strictly required under New York and California law, where they were illegally soliciting. He couldn't see any of this. And then on Sunday night, or whenever they taped the interview, he had the audacity to say that, you know, he was fine when Georgie Boy Stephanopoulos asked him, hey, you know, I'm an interviewer. Actually, I'm a suck-up king who used to work for Bill Clinton.
Right.
You know, hey, how come you shut down the investigation? And he says on television, well, because there was nothing there. Because he's absurd. A dope.
That's just
he's
absurd.
An idiot.
Well, I think that by saying that he's a dope and an idiot, it implies that he had tried but failed. Like, almost like he can't be blamed because he's too stupid. But I don't think he's stupid. I think he deliberately ignored these things.
I think he's pretty stupid to have written this book and think that he'd get away with it. I mean, if you think about all the work you've been doing and I've been doing to try to expose this fraud, we have a lot of people watching this, and to the prosecutors who are out there, please keep up your job. The investigators, please keep up your excellent jobs. Please take a hard look. I'm going to give you a little bonus round while we wait for James Comey. I was just doing this work. Take a look at the 2005 Schedule B for the Clinton Foundation, which lists all the donations. Take a look at the article that's in Polyzet today that where I write about the Bush-Clinton-Katrina fraud, which is a massive fraud. The biggest donation was around 46, 47 million. in, I think, a pool of small donations, of which the biggest piece was the Bush-Clinton-Katrina Fund, 26 million supposedly. Take a hard look at when the Bush-Clinton-Katrina Fund was organized. Hint, October 4th, 2005, in Delaware. Then look at all the press releases, the ones I hint about in the article today and the ones I will show you tomorrow, where they said they raised 37,000 online donations in the month ending September 29th, you know, the 30-day period, or maybe it's September 30th. In that period, the Clinton Foundation and others raised 37,000 online donations. How do you do that for an organization that doesn't exist? And then while you're thinking about that, take a look. Do you see a contribution for $1.5 million? Because when you go into the books of the Alphawood Foundation for the period March 1st, 2005 to February 28th, 2006, you'll see at the very end of the statement of contributions, 2 donations aggregating $1.5 million. You won't see $1.5 million in the Presidential Foundation, in the Clinton Foundation Schedule B list, but you see it in Fred Eichner's Alphawood Foundation. Those amounts supposedly going to William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation for HIV/AIDS work in China. Okay, there was no William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation during 2005. There was the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation until April 24th, 2005, and then there was a William J. Clinton the William J. Clinton Foundation from April 25th to the end of the year. There was no authorized Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative in China. There was no organization that had been validly approved by the IRS in the United States. There was no entity in China that had been validly approved, and there's no record of a gift from William J. Clinton Foundation to this HIV/AIDS initiative in China in the books of the Clinton Foundation or the hidden books which we found for Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative Inc. Other than that, it's all perfect.
But Charles, I got to imagine that the FBI has pretty sophisticated, you know, financial investigators, forensic accountants, whatever. How could all those people with all those resources and all that money miss these things?
I think the files have to come forward. I think the files will show that somebody told the team, look, this is too much of a mess. It hurts Republicans, it hurts Democrats. We just have to give this a pass, stand down. What?
What's happening, Dave? Good to see you, man. Take care.
Who's that?
That's a friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
It's New York City. I'm
constantly... friend of yours?
That guy I went to college with. No, that's Batman.
You didn't go to
What's up, Batman?
How you doing?
Okay, so we got my friend Dave, Batman, and maybe James Comey on the same
there is a Mercedes
stream.
Man over there. I don't know if it looks like a close support following it and preceding it.
That looks like the type of van that would follow Quinn Michaels to Vaughn, New Mexico.
That's probably right.
Which I'm still trying to figure out how Dave knew that Quinn Michaels was in Vaughn, New Mexico. So, Charles, I don't know, I know you're very busy. You probably did not have a chance to see this last night, and I don't know when the last time you spoke with Harmon Wilford was, but of course, last night Harmon spoke to us about these Chinese gold bearer bonds, which had coupons on them that had been utilized by Oliver North. Now, I'm not very knowledgeable about bonds and investments and things like that. What is a coupon on a bearer bond, and what would it do?
So a coupon is, in the old days, you would buy this bond. It would come attached with a bunch of all these coupons that you would represent the interest payments for each period. And when the time had elapsed where the interest was due, you could present those were negotiable instruments. You could collect your interest payment by sending in your coupon.
So imagine I'm a total idiot and I have no idea how a bond or a bearer bond or a coupon works. So US government says, hey, we're gonna have a war, so we need money, and we're gonna offer these bonds, which is essentially anyone can buy it, and you're giving a loan to the government, right?
Well, I don't know if these are US government bonds. You said they were Chinese bonds.
Well, I think they were held by the Chinese, but they were I think they were US war bonds held by the Chinese.
Well, that could be. I mean, I don't know how far back we're talking about here.
This was from 1949, and they were to mature in 1999, and Harmon was dealing with them in 1999. These Chinese guys had them and wanted Harmon to, I guess, exercise them or cash them in or whatever?
So like anything else, bearer bonds are like the antediluvian Bitcoin. In other words, you got to be really careful with bearer bonds.
Why?
Generally speaking, the way bonds work is you have to, say you have a registered agent who holds the bond, and you know there's issues of counterfeiting and stuff like that.
Yes, that was a big issue.
Yeah, bearer bonds are bonds where you don't need to know who owns them, and it's very dangerous to be trading. It's on the one hand useful if you're trying to do secret stuff,
yes,
but dangerous if you're a serious investor to be messing around with bearer bonds, because you could be. It's the oldest trick in the book to be presented a piece of paper and somebody says this is a real bond,
yeah,
and then you give that person real money,
right,
and then you take that bond to somebody else, so you try to sell it, and you say, congratulations, this will look really good in a frame because it's worth absolutely nothing.
Well, Harman spoke quite a bit about the verification of the bonds and how these guys had the plates that were used to print them. He had to present them to Gregory Craig, who was Bill Clinton's attorney. Gregory Craig had a lot of stuff to say about it. He was like, oh, these are counterfeit, but don't worry, I'll hold them for you.
Gregory Craig said that?
Well, I mean, I'm exaggerating. I'm kind of poetic licensing, but there was a whole bit of back and forth with Gregory Craig, and definitely verifying the authenticity of the bonds was a big deal. My question is, presuming that the bonds are legitimate, so the U.S. government or whoever issues the bond says, hey, we need money, buy this bond for $1,000 or whatever. So how does that work? I pay $1,000 for the bond, or what is it?
More likely it would be in the millions.
Okay, so $1 million bond.
So you would be given, the original purchase of the bond would be given this massive stack of paper.
Yes.
That would be a whole bunch of coupons.
Right.
Think of it as like those old-fashioned things that you would, like a stamp.
I saw it. It actually looked like stamps that you rip off.
So you rip, that's where the expression comes, clipping coupons. If you're a very rich person, you have a bunch of these bonds. Time comes, your job is, you take the bond out, you take the coupon out, you put it in the mail, or you present it to your bank, and you get some more money.
And so that interest payment is interest that the government is paying to me as the person who bought the bond, right?
Yes.
Okay. So basically the idea is we know that Oliver North was the main guy who sat in front of the Senate and answered all the questions about Iran-Contra, where the CIA, basically against the will of the people of the United States and the Congress, sold guns to Iran for their war against Iraq, used that money.
No. Was that what we did?
Iran-Contra, yes. As far as I understand, H.W. Bush orchestrated with Mossad or Israel or Mark Rich or whoever to sell weapons to Iran for their war against Iraq, because there was economic sanctions against Iran at the time for the hostage crisis of 1978, 9, whatever it was. So they sold these weapons to Iran. They, to the Ayatollah Khomeini, right? They took the money from the weapon sales, the illegal weapon sales, and they used it to buy cocaine from the Contras, who were fighting the communist government of Nicaragua, the Sandinistas, who Dave tells me he was captured by the Sandinistas. I don't know what he was doing there if he wasn't part of Iran-Contra, and he gets super duper upset when I talk about Iran-Contra, and a lot of people are trying to interfere with my communications with Harman Wilfred and to stop information coming out from Harman Wilfred. Last week, they struck Crowdsource The Truth 2 just half an hour before the Harman Wilfred broadcast was to begin, and that made it very difficult to go out live, although we did. Now they've got people calling Harman Wilfred. We've had people emailing Harman Wilfred suggesting that he interview with Robert David Steele, very curiously connected to the CIA, who was involved in Iran-Contra. I'm just wondering, do these gold bearer bonds held by this Chinese association have anything to do with Iran-Contra? Since Oliver North was tearing off coupons, what are we on to?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, the general principle of Iran-Contra and exercises like that strike me as very dangerous, rogue operations, especially when the U.S. government and the Congress says, thou shalt not do X, Y, and Z.
And they go right ahead and do it.
They go ahead and do it. You left out the part connecting it to Mena, Arkansas.
Well, that's where the cocaine flew into, exactly.
Right. So You know, these are operations. You know, one thing I suppose Americans could hold our noses, collected noses, and say, you know, we really don't want to know what these deep state people are doing because the world is so much safer because of their excellent efforts. But that didn't happen.
Right.
I mean, we look, as I say, back to 1988. It's been a 30-year war against the American middle class and lower class citizens for the benefit of a tiny fraction of the elite. And this needs to stop, and the people who are behind it need to be exposed and punished. I think we started on the question, what are we here looking for James Comey? Suppose he's going to give an interview momentarily. We see no signs of him yet, and he's pretty tough to miss since he's 6'8"
right.
in physical stature and about 1'8" in intellectual stature, an honesty factor.
Right.
But I don't know what time we have at this point.
Well, right now it is 1:15, and I pre-recorded this rather than going out live because I wasn't sure if he would show up or not. But I mean, I think, I'm sorry about the sound. The sound might be quite bad, but I think we're having a pretty interesting conversation about bonds, about Iran-Contra, and I think everybody is always interested in hearing your insights into some of these more complicated financial matters that really the average person doesn't necessarily know that much about. I also think that's part of the reason why they choose to operate on these types of things, because even when they're explained, they're difficult to understand.
Right. Well, again, I think, you know, one of the important methods here, what we're seeing in the current events, is that Donald Trump is trying to put fair controls on the deep state, which now is, you know, spread to 17 known security agencies, and who knows how many, you know, off-the-books private contracting agencies.
Right.
And, you know, it's not as if the United States is in a moment where we've got massive budget surpluses, we got budget deficits, we got issues, we got priorities to balance. And, you know, it's time for the deep state to be held to account. And I think, you know, James Comey is Exhibit A in the deep state swamp. Bob Mueller is Exhibit B. And Rod Rosenstein's Exhibit C, and who knows how many other exhibits have not yet entered the exhibit file, but have to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, when we start to consider all these things that we're discussing right now, we are quite clearly banging on the most hornet-infested nest possibly that ever existed. So the notion that all of these different players are coming out of the woodwork to thwart that effort, maybe not that far-fetched.
Well, I think, you know, the people who are doing this kind of stuff are actually, you know, they may think they're acting out of their enlightened self-interest, but what I see going on around the world, vis-a-vis the Clinton Foundation, vis-a-vis its affiliates, vis-a-vis a change in the way the IRS is going to be run, a change in the way justice and the FBI is going to be run.
Here's a Cadillac that looks like it might contain James Comey.
Well, that would be interesting. Do you think he's in there with Hillary Clinton?
I don't know. She has more of a bus. Well, there's a lot of Cadillac Escalades around. It is slowing down, but
it would come out. It would probably come on this side.
Yeah, no, that's not him.
Yeah. And it's getting pretty close. I mean, if he was coming on at 1:30,
he's got to be up there already.
Yeah, I don't think he would have been that early. I got here at 5:01. I didn't see him. It could well be that he's down in Washington D.C. office, and I know they have an office in Washington D.C. But our friend who told us about this, we won't mention his name, said it was going to be in New York.
Huh. Well, we'll still wait here and see if he shows up.
Sure, it is actually. It's quite interesting to see, you know, all the flotsam and jetsam walking up and down the street here.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, are you okay with your hand?
I'm fine. I'm just, you know, I'm just thinking about all the different things that are happening. I'm thinking about the time correlations of when people try to convince me that trusted associates are lying to me, and they present, you know, weird, not definitive information and get upset when I don't, you know.
Give them a high five.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's just people that act in ways that seem strange. And when it can't be explained through a normal explanation, the possibility that they're trying to trick me or trying to convince me of something for some purpose other than
a good purpose.
Yeah, that starts to enter my mind.
So this is where we're standing now. This is in front of the Thompson Reuters building, and there's actually a bunch of great studios up there.
Yeah, I'm just going to show the building. You can keep talking.
Yeah, and I was very pleased to go in. I've been in there many times to go on something called I-24, which is a private 24/7 news service owned by a gentleman out of who lives in Geneva, but this particular service is based, I think, in Haifa, Israel. Either Haifa or Jaffa, I forget which. But anyway, very professional group. Their French arm has apparently secured this Comey interview, which was supposed to start at 1:30 p.m. And Fabien Chalandon, the person everyone, in Crowdsource the Truth seems to really enjoy immensely, as do I, and as do you, sent a bunch of questions for this journalist, Ruth Elcriff, to ask of Mr. Comey, including, why the hell didn't he get the Clinton Foundation the first time? And how come he wasn't able to see any problems having to do with Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative and the adulterated drugs that entity bought with money that Unitake gave him between 2007 and 2009?
That sounds like an interview he's going to walk out of, possibly.
Yeah. Stumble out of.
Charles, you're reminding me of something with Fabien Chalandon. That video was the Pinko Panthers. That was the first video that I noticed got a thumbs down attack of 1,000, actually 1,100 thumbs down, which was super incongruent with the results from basically every other Sunday with Charles episode. And I mean, a huge number. I don't know that we've gotten 1,100 thumbs up or thumbs down on any video.
Well, we've gotten that many thumbs up.
1,100, yeah.
Sure.
But never 1,100 thumbs down. I mean, never anything close to that, except there was another video that we did, and I can't remember if it was Sunday with Charles or Harmon Wilfred, but got 590 thumbs down. And also, I did a video where I pointed out what appeared to be evidence of YouTube subscription manipulation. We know we've dealt with individuals who I've been talking about who are adept at creating alternative, what is often called sock puppet, Twitter accounts, YouTube accounts. So, these are people who describe themselves as mind hackers, people who we know are adept at hacking. Mr. Dave wrote a book about ethical hacking.
Really? Somebody published it?
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of like a government manual or something, but he considers himself an ethical hacker. And just the other day, he published a video claiming that I had hacked his cell phone. Something that I have no skills in, no knowledge of, but I will tell you that for the past 3 days, sort of since that bizarre video was made, I've been getting phone calls on my office line, which was publicly put on the internet by another one of their nefarious crew. Well, it's actually more complicated than that. I don't want to go into all the details because it will reveal, things that might help them, but I've been getting dozens of people calling me saying, oh, I just got a call from you. And I say, well, no, I didn't call you. And then they tell me the number that it came from, and the only conclusion I can come to is that someone is freaking my phone number. Do you know what that means?
You told me,
Yeah, where they somehow electronically clone the phone number and can place calls that appear to be coming from that phone number. Someone today told me that they got some sort of voice message on their phone in a language that they described as Asian. Now, I don't know this person, and I'm unaware of a language that is Asian, but that's what he said. My point is, I've gotten, 10, 15 calls from people saying that they've gotten a call from me, which, that sounds like some kind of phone hacking to me.
Well,
it's not anything I know how to do.
As we were discussing earlier, I think that our viewership might want to check out 18 USC 1342, use of a fictitious name, alongside 18 USC 1341. These are serious crimes, and it's one thing to be, we're here in Times Square, it's one thing to be in a movie with a stage name, that where everyone understands, you're fictitious characters, right? I mean, people get that. So
actors use
that's okay.
Different alternate names.
But when you use post office boxes, when you use telephones, when you use the internet, and you're using fictitious names, in furtherance of a fraudulent scheme, that's a very serious crime. And, so these people are just adding to the bill of particulars in an indictment, which could well be coming their way, especially as we grow to learn more and more of what actually happened. The Clinton Foundation, compendium of frauds. I mean, it's fraud 101.
Right. So we're right about 1:25, and I see no signs of the Jolly Green Comey.
I think he's probably not going to show up as a guest, because I just know to get through security, get up into the studio.
Well, certainly not through this entrance. Yeah.
Well, this is the only entrance.
Okay. So maybe he was here earlier in the building. Maybe he's
pre-taped
specifically trying to avoid having us or anyone speak to him as he enters the building.
Well, as a guess, I mean, I've never done it, but he's on his gigantic global book tour. It's not going so well.
Why is that?
They showed this morning some great Kramer's bookstore in Washington, D.C., and they said for every one book, every customer, there were 10 cameras. In other words, there weren't that many customers, and there were a lot of cameras there.
But if he was doing a book signing in Washington, D.C., I guess he could have flown here quite quickly.
See, that was yesterday. I think the issue with Dopey James Comey and his book is he's really, as I said in the beginning, he's really managed to do the impossible. I mean, Trump couldn't unite the entire Democratic, Republican, agnostic, independent, bureaucrat. The whole spectrum is now kvetching, I'll use a polite term, you know, about Dopey James Comey and his idiotic, you know, characterization of ongoing investigations, which you're neither supposed to, you know, you're not supposed to say that when it's happening. You're not supposed to say that it isn't happening while it's happening. Right. And you know, we do know that there are multiple investigations around this Clinton Foundation. Right. And here he is up on TV, you know, with this idiot Stephanopoulos, allowing Stephanopoulos and ABC to promote this big book reveal. And then, you know, where does he get off as just some rather ineffective FBI director and bureaucrat? Where does he get off making a comment that, you know, Donald Trump does not have the moral standing to serve? When he was prepared, it seems, his wife and 4 daughters were actively campaigning for Hillary Clinton. She has the moral character because she knows moral character, because she's married to Bill Clinton, who displayed such high moral character as President of the United States, as governor, as Attorney General. That Hillary Clinton? I mean, this guy is just, he's made a fool of himself. Yeah, even bigger fool than himself.
I really do believe, Charles, that what we're seeing right now are the maneuvers of people who are so aware. Yes, they're cornered. They're so aware that, you know, time is basically up for them, and so many of them are implicated in their involvement with either actually doing crimes or covering crimes, that the only option that they have left is continue to cover them, to smear and malign the people that are trying to reveal the evidence of their crimes. And I think they're going for the easiest target first, which obviously, you know, that in this case is me. They're filling up the internet with false information about me, so that when people who don't know me start to look at the internet, they're inundated with all this information and they don't know what to believe.
Well, I think they should go and look at the many videos you and I have done together and follow the course of you know, what we've been saying early on, you know, many aspects of this investigation. I sort of got a chuckle after we did the Goodfellas, which was, I guess, what was that, a week ago, right?
Yeah.
You know, I turned on the television, there's Sean Hannity doing, you know, more or less repeating. I'm sure he came to the conclusions independently, but, you know, talking about the Comey crime family and the Clinton crime family and the Mueller crime family. And really what I think we have revealed here is that these people in the FBI and the deep state, they figured out, let everybody else run for office. You only get like a 2-year term, a 4-year term, or a 6-year term. Well, within the deep state and with the contractors around it, you vacuum up all this information. All these politicians have skeletons in their closets. You're then able to hold those skeletons over the politicians to get your no-bid contract, to get your, you know, your crooked business deal, to get paid off by, you know, crooked donors and all that kind of stuff. And this whole system is the swamp itself. It's tied into the universities, it's tied into the think tanks, it's tied into the corporate media. And I think that, you know, Comey and Lois Lerner and people like that, and Justice and elsewhere, all thought that in Hillary Clinton, they didn't think, they knew that in Hillary Clinton they had a bankable president. They could take her graft to the bank for 4 to 8 years, and then that would give Chelsea enough time to grow up and maybe follow after that. They were trying to put in place and they maybe did temporarily put in place in H.W. Bush. You know, you could argue all the way back, as you do, to when he was vice president, H.W., then as president, Bill Clinton as president, W as president, Obama as president. They had put in place this system where these were pinos, presidents in name only.
Right.
You know, and the real, you know, grafty deal doing was being done in these offshore banks, in these crooked funds, in these opaque foundations. They had a nice thing going. Donald Trump comes along and says, yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
Charles, isn't this quite clearly straight out of the book of J. Edgar Hoover? Use the FBI to conduct surveillance on everyone, and then when you find anything, if it's truly criminal or truly, you know, adultery or something that the person really doesn't want coming out, that can be used to influence them. And I mean, what we see in the case of me is that they're not able to find anything, so they're concocting things and then using things that I've said to twist the truth and to try to, I mean, what Dave is doing right now is trying to implicate me in hoaxes that it would seem that him and his associates have been pushing since prior to the incidents even occurring. Everyone that's involved is connected directly to him.
Well, I think, you know, the caliber of your opposition is not exactly Olympic quality.
Well, but there's a lot of them. It's a quantity.
And they need to be, I mean, the real authorities who are watching this, it's time for them to stand up and protect you. I mean, this is,
I hope so.
And I hope they are. And I think, you know, I don't know, but I would expect they may very well be doing so. I mean, it's quite reassuring to me that as we discussed before, that the Horowitz report, the first piece that leaked out on Friday, or was released on Friday, confirms that there was indeed a Clinton Foundation investigation and that certain elements within the FBI and maybe Justice Department were trying to shut it down, as high as possibly Loretta Lynch or even the President of the United States himself. If that's what Horowitz is looking at, and the kind of detail that we saw in the first report,
right,
then I think we have reason to believe that your opponents are basically getting... Jesus.
What was that?
Oh,
air conditioning.
Somebody's spitting. Getting themselves, they should be thinking about which size jail suit they want to wear for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, some of them are going to need double XL.
Exactly.
Big and tall shop.
That's right. You put some of them in with, you know, cellmates with Comey.
Well, luckily there's a few people there who are, you know, 6'5", 6'8", so maybe they can get a discount on the orange outfits. They could, you know, buy a six-pack or something like that.
Orange is the new black.
Orange is the new black. So it's interesting because, you know, each agency that Dave mentions, I have been proactively contacting to let them know that I have strong evidence to indicate that he actually was behind the hoax, that he is the one who's writing books about cyber militias and cyber stalking, and he is the one who is engaged in all that. You know, Charles, my friend and associate Quinn Michaels has been involved in a very interesting philosophical and anthropology and artificial intelligence experiment that deals with how people communicate over the internet and how hashtags and artificial intelligence that tracks hashtags and tracks internet engagement. He's just having a fun time putting out this time phone hack hashtag. And the same people who make up lies constantly about me are now saying that that is somehow harassing them. It makes no sense. Quinn is talking about hacking the future, which of course is a theoretical concept. He's talking about quantum physics. He's talking about quantum philosophy, basically. And it's something between comedy, poetry, philosophy, spoken word, science fiction, and they attack it.
I think these people are living in the alternative universe where Hillary Clinton is president. I mean, you know, we have an absolute right of free speech. Virtually absolute right.
Well, they don't want us to have free speech. They want to have free speech under anonymous names and anonymous ability to make videos making fun of me and anonymous strikes on YouTube videos. What's happening?
No, man. Socialism.
Okay, thanks for that.
We're in the middle of something. We're in the middle of something.
We'll chat with you about that later.
No, man. Socialism, man, is taking over this country, man.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're kind of in the middle of something right
We'll
now.
chat with you about it later.
Can we talk to you
No,
later?
man, I'm a conservative, man, and I can't believe socialism has taken a foot in this country. And if you work for this news agency,
We don't.
We don't.
Oh.
We can't.
I want to know if they. If
We
they,
don't know anything
if they-
about them.
If they understand anything that's
Can
going
you just
on
give
in
us
this
a minute?
country. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This Bernie Sanders fan, I guess.
Conservative.
Yeah. Anywho,
That's right.
a
Well,
lot of interesting people that you meet on the streets of New York. I think maybe James Comey's not going to show up, Charles.
I think he's having a 3-martini lunch
So
under
what-
the table.
What should we do? Just end this and
I
put
think,
it out?
I think we should end it.
All
put it
right.
out.
Well, I appreciate you meeting me here.
Anytime.
I appreciate your insights, and I'll be back later tonight. Thanks
All
for
right,
watching,
Jason.
everybody.
Thank you.